I make sure that I give them time to give that feedback like an audience would, where I know if they're listening, or an audience shows their appreciation when you've done a good job, and when you really make them feel good, they applaud you. And that's the feedback, that is instantaneous feedback. It's the same a lot of times in a meeting. They don't applaud, obviously, but they will tell you verbally, like, I feel so much better. Thank you so much. This is great. Or when you've gotten there, they're just like, okay, great. What's the next step?
Welcome to the Active Advisor Podcast, brought to you by Harbor Capital. Join us as we learn from pros who have helped thousands of investors live better lives. I'm Bryan Moore, and I'll be chatting with some of the brightest minds in the financial advisory business, bringing you insights on practice management and investment research that works for advisors and their clients. Joining me today on this episode of the Active Advisor Podcast is Ben Westney, Senior Vice President of Wealth Management at World Investment Advisors. Ben took his passion for connecting with audiences through his music and transformed it to connecting with individuals one-on-one to prepare them for retirement. With that, 10 years ago, Ben made a major career change from being a professional cellist to a wealth management advisor. Based in San Antonio, Texas, he now offers wealth management and financial planning services with specialties in retirement planning, investment management, and small business retirement plans. Outside of work, Ben enjoys spending his time with his wife and their 3 boys, as well as volunteering and playing the cello for touring Broadway shows. Welcome, Ben. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Brian. Great to be here.
So I'm sure I'm going to ask you at least one point about the cello and a lot of questions, but we typically like to always dig in with the first question, which is, what is the first memory you have related to money or investing?
Yeah, I was always kind of an independent guy, and I left the house at 18. There was no problem with my family or anything like that. I mean, I lived in the same city. I just moved out into my own house. So I bring that up to say, after about 6 months of that, I ran out of money, and I had to come kind of crawling back home and asking for help. And that stung. And so that was sort of my first experience with just thinking about money as something that you needed, and you had to have some to make it, and you had to have a little extra. And that really influences my philosophy and how I deal with clients today. Is I stress the emergency fund as sort of the most important thing at all life stages that people can have. Just having liquidity on hand. It does a little or a lot, but just having some. And it's really because of that memory, which I'll always have.
It's funny. Memories like that have a tendency that they have some staying power. They'll stick with you.
Yeah.
But we've all been there. And it looks like safe to say you've managed pretty well and recovered.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure we'll get to this, but definitely that served me well in my sort of freelance musician career. You've definitely got to have some cushion there, because that's an inconsistent revenue stream, or an income stream, I should say. And it kind of does teach you to prepare for the worst.
Very true. Curious, is there anything else along the way that's kind of helped lead you to where you are today? I mean, obviously you mentioned kind of having the revenue stream, having that, or inconsistent revenue stream, having that need for a backup, and always being able to think about contingency plans. Is there anything else over the period of years that you think was a cornerstone to help get you where you are?
I would say, so I'll kind of dig into my career as a musician. It's great when you're in college, you're just waiting to enter the real world, but you don't really have to deal with real world problems. At least I was lucky enough not to have to do that at the time. And so you get out there, and, the bank account goes up and it goes down. And I'm looking at my date book. This is 25 years ago. There weren't any cell phones or digital calendars. And all the work for a musician dries up in the summertime, at least in my line of work, in my area. So you're going to have 3 months where you've got to have something socked away there. And I think I remember there was a summer where you get to around late July and August, and there's just no gigs and there's no money coming in. And so you end up, if you don't have enough cash saved up, you got to go into debt in some way. So you're doing a credit card or something like that. And it was essentially that same experience, which helped me kind of always have a little extra on hand. And then I'll say, as it really kind of relates to this career even, you have to go make things happen. Sure, some people just, their phone's ringing, but as a musician, it's really better if you can go generate your own work. So I remember days when I was sort of trying to break in back in Austin, Texas in the early 2000s. And I sort of somehow got the phone number of a couple of local contractors, and I would call them with my date book open. And I say, I'm free on these Saturdays if you need somebody. And it was just, they didn't have to worry about it. And I guess these are not complicated gigs. These are like weddings and little things like that where you don't need exactly like, I get they're comfortable hiring somebody who maybe they don't know yet just to go do and sit and play Paco Bell's Canon or something quite simple. So I was able to kind of break in a little bit that way just by picking up the phone and making it happen, not just sitting around and waiting. And I think that sort of approach to, I wanted to do it. I knew that you have to work hard and I've always worked hard. I've always had jobs, even before I could drive. I've always been somebody who was willing to work hard and do that to make a living. And yeah, that ended up being a skill that would serve me well in this career as well.
Definitely you can see where that kind of fits. Looking back, I'm sure you enjoyed the connection of playing in front of large audiences. Working with clients one-on-one on something as important as planning for their financial future must also give you kind of a similar degree of personal connection and fulfillment. Have you thought about any similarities between the deep connections you've had in both instances?
That's a great question, Brian. It's not something that I think about as that I'm sort of fulfilling a certain need in that way. It just sort of comes naturally to me to connect with people. And when you are performing on stage, whether you're with a large group of people, for instance, in a symphony orchestra, or whether you're in a very small group, or even by yourself. I played just solo cello concerts in front of hundreds of people. And one thing that you learn there is to just be comfortable in your own skin. And that really helps to connect and relate to people because you can kind of cut down any kind of fake persona that you might be putting on. And so that transfers really well to doing this. Yeah, it helps you to enjoy it more if you're not trying to remember the music and everything is all the technical aspects of it and also make it sound beautiful and spontaneous while sort of putting on a kind of a fake character or something like that. So yeah, you really do have to let down your guard and be completely vulnerable in front of the people and they can feel that. Like, I know there's a connection with an audience. I can feel it. It's one of those things where you get to a quiet moment or a pause and you can hear a pin drop. And you know that everybody's listening intently. And I use that same kind of performance technique, you might say, in my one-on-one meetings with clients. Like, it's very important to me that if I make a point or if I, when you're working with a client, there's certain points that are very important that you want them to understand. And it's really fundamental to them wanting to work with you or wanting to understand what you're doing. So I make sure that I give them time to give that feedback like an audience would, where I know if they're listening, or an audience shows their appreciation when you've done a good job and when you really make them feel good, they applaud you. And that's the feedback that you use, instantaneous feedback. It's the same a lot of times in a meeting. They don't applaud, obviously, but they will tell you verbally, like, I feel so much better. Thank you so much. This is great. Or when you've gotten there, they're just like, okay, great. What's the next step? Like this, in their mind, you've won them over and they show their appreciation by reciprocating that.
Well, and I think that has to be one of the things I like to say about this business, whether you're a trader, you're a financial advisor, money manager, we are all in the customer service business. And so I think one of the things that gets lost a lot of times is that it's all about our clients. And it sounds to me like you've got a really interesting and unique way of kind of connecting with them on a one-on-one basis, which I can only imagine and have to believe it really means into more of a deep, meaningful relationship with the client. I would assume that would lead to even a better outcome for all parties involved. So I salute you on that one.
Thank you. Yeah. To me, that's what it means to sort of do the fiduciary thing. I don't think of that as like a checking a box. There are certain things you do have to check boxes to do the fiduciary thing, but I'm very open with clients. Like, I need to really get to know you and not just what the numbers tell me, but your psyche, your emotions, your fears, and that's going to help us all to kind of work together. So when the client lets down their guard and tells you those things, then you've got the two-way street, and you're absolutely right. It's not a guarded relationship. It's a very open and functional and working relationship.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears here. We're going to kind of move away from touchy-feely. Well, I would love to see or get your take if you could talk about the transition many 401k plan participants face as they reach their retirement years.
Well, I see that here. So my company, we used to be known as Pension Mark for many years. Pension Mark was known in the RIA industry as a very 401k focused type firm, as all 401k focused firms have done lately. We're branching out more into wealth management, but I've been on this corner for several years now within the network. And now we're called World Investment Advisors. So I've seen firsthand kind of like I was brought here, or let's say I had the opportunity to come here as a wealth management advisor to support a 401k practice and work with individuals in 401ks, the participants there and the executives as well sometimes that to, utilize that tool towards their goals and then to transition that over to a wealth management type of a role. So I think everybody is going to face this sort of decision when they leave a company, whether they are just changing careers or changing firms or whether they're retiring. Like, what do they do with their assets there? They always have options. They can leave it there and do nothing. They can move it to the new plan. They can roll it over to an IRA. They can pull it out and go spend it. And I'm generally very careful about not just pushing clients or prospects, let's say, to do one thing or another, but just helping them evaluate what those choices are. And so the first thing is they need to maximize what they're doing in the plan by, of course, getting the match from their company, not really monkeying around with the investments too much. These days, the default option is probably better than what they would do themselves, except in rare cases. So they can just leave that there. And then when they leave a company and they're sort of a former participant in an old plan, but they still have money there, they need to look carefully at what kind of fees are they paying over there? Like, what kind of service are they getting? Like, if they're a more conservative investor, most 401ks aren't really tailored very well to the conservative investor. You got all sorts of equity funds, but maybe one or two fixed income funds, stable value fund, something that is just kind of checking a box, right, on the menu. And that's fine. That's what it is. But 401ks are made to grow. So when you get to that point in life when it's more about maybe preservation or income, I find that the tool is not as suitable toward that objective as going outside, like an IRA. And then I think I'd like to draw a distinction. The other thing I've seen, going back to sort of our previous topic about sort of making connections with clients, there's a very clear difference to me in the mindset of a 401k advisor and the 401k service to the company. So you're dealing with the CFO or an HR director or some person whose job it is to have a 401k for the company, and that it's a Tuesday and they've got to get it done. So they kind of go through that process. They might do requests for proposals. It might just be nurturing an existing relationship, but it's very much just a service and they want to get good value for money and they want to make sure they're doing everything they're supposed to do. It's a different kind of decision if you're working with that. It's a different kind of decision, a different kind of relationship versus, so with a 401k participant who is maybe somebody who I want to help on the wealth management side, we have to get beyond that sort of, let's say, left brain thinking and get more into the other side, which is that trust, that thinking about objectives, thinking about sort of values and goals and making that. So I think there's both things are sort of at play here, the technical side and then let's say the emotion that you have to really be able to connect with a client.
In what ways are you planting seeds with the active 401k participants to kind of prepare them for that eventual transition away from the 401k plan, which is, as you mentioned, very different, and over to kind of in retirement or into working with an individual advisor like yourself?
Yeah. So I'm lucky that we get to go do one-on-one meetings, like education meetings. I have to be very clear that what's the line between education, planned education and advice, right? We can't really cross that line. And I always make it clear that when I'm doing it like a group meeting or one-on-ones, that this is planned education and we'll help you kind of figure out what you need to do, but I can't tell you what to do or make any recommendation. But certainly for people who are approaching retirement age, we want to be in there doing kind of retirement readiness or roadmap sort of presentations. It could be something that's topic specific, like Social Security or Medicare or long-term care, but it could just be a general kind of, here's some steps you should take to make sure your assets are in the right place, your investments are good, at least lined up with what your timeline is. Also, again, lucky enough to be in an environment or be in a firm where they want us to, like me personally, we have a couple of other advisors, work with that HR manager, with that CFO, somebody who's an executive at the company, because a lot of times they're the first point of contact for a confused or curious kind of participant who has questions, they don't know where to turn. I think a lot of people in the world, the 401k is something that doesn't come with an instruction manual, right? It just, here's your 401k, sign here and pick your percentage and that's it. There's nobody really telling them exactly what to do and how to do it. And when I encounter that kind of situation in my own life where it's like, I'm not really ready to kind of study this thing that I don't know about, I generally just don't think about it. And I think that happens to a lot of people with retirement. So they will go to their HR person, their CFO first, and like, where should I turn? I inherited some money over here, or I think I'm going to retire in a couple of years, or, any financial question. They just don't know where to turn. So it's nice that the plan sponsor, whoever that person is, knows that we're here and that they will send us. And again, we have hopefully a high trust, open relationship with that person so that they feel very comfortable sending that person with those questions to me. And so one thing I will say is I don't view every interaction with a participant or anybody else as an opportunity for business. It might be one, it might not be, but I've always been open to just have a conversation with somebody, figure out what's going on, learn who they are and what their circumstance is. And sometimes I can just answer a few questions and there's not really any business opportunity, but I'm happy to spend a half an hour or more with somebody just talking through it. And to me, that's part of the privilege that I have of being in this particular situation in this firm, that I can take the time to do that. And it started working with some of my fellow musicians who I love and care about and want them to do well. But musicians are sort of over qualified, but underpaid for their career. And so they need to really maximize their financial. And so I always will take on, even if the assets are not very big, and I'm happy to work with them and help them make the right choices and help them kind of manage the risk of inconsistent revenue, cash flow, and things like that. Yeah, I think it would be the same for our 401k participants.
I'm curious, when you have these meetings or kind of the education sessions, what's the most common concern you hear from these clients? Is it, oh my gosh, it's ending, it's shifting, or is it, I wish I would have done X?
Well, yeah, we got them all, but I will say most people's concerns are short-term concerns. They're things that will pass pretty soon if you just kind of hang back a minute. So it could be anything that's within the news cycle of the day. So kind of get blue in the face telling people this is all normal. Think about, we're a 55-year-old. I say, okay, you're going to have like 7 more elections in your life. Like you can't freak out every time. Like it is what it is. Recessions are normal. You probably have half a dozen more in your lifetime. Like it just is normal. Like you just have to learn to kind of be with that. And it's not the most exciting thing to say. And certainly most clients, or let's say most people who I speak with about that, are usually hoping for more of a concrete answer, but that's really the best I can do. And I think that's what's in their best interest too, is to kind of tell them, well, don't worry about what happens in the short term. If you need money in the short term, you should have that money parked in cash somewhere. That's, I don't want that money. I'm not in a bank. I don't want that money. And I'm very happy to tell people that, like, yeah, you should just keep that money safe. And then you're going to spend it in the next year, 18 months. But yeah, it's always helping people kind of think beyond that short-term news cycle. That's just, we all know it's sort of engineered to generate fear in people, and fear makes people want to take action. And you've got to tell them, just be patient.
Well, one thing similar to kind of the news cycle changing everything is the wealth management industry has also been on a constantly evolving, changing kind of dynamic for as long as I can remember. And I can't imagine it actually stopping. Would love to kind of get your take and hear what are some of the biggest challenges that you see on the horizon?
We always have regulatory risk in our industry. Whoever's heading whatever agency is regulating us, there's always going to be political pressure to change things. I think some of those are come from a good place, right? We all want what's best for our clients. And we would like to eradicate the people in our industry who do not demonstrably act in the best interest of their clients. And some of that is so structural, it's very difficult to change. So I don't have the answers, but I accept the fact that I'm RIA only. I used to have all the registrations. I used to be double registered, all that. I'm not a broker dealer registered rep anymore. And that was a choice I made, not out of some sort of piety or anything. It wasn't a very lucrative business for me. And the overhead and the compliance I found it onerous. And I thought, well, let me just go over here where it's a smoother type of business. It's a little more easy because they assume that you're acting under the fiduciary standard. So then you have sort of heavy regulations that come on top of that and sort of just make extra hoops for us all to jump through. I don't mind that so much because I understand it's for the good of the business. So that's always something that we might face. I'll say the biggest thing that I see coming is the pendulum swinging back from a lot of players wanted to get into 401ks some years back. 401k was seen as a huge opportunity to, you get automatic asset gathering, right? Like, because there's, just contributions being made on a periodic basis. The assets are very sticky. You can kind of have if you're an investment provider, you have a limited lineup. And if you can get in there, you just know you're going to have a certain amount of fund flows. Once you only have to kind of get in there once, and then hopefully it just stays in there for a long time. But of course, as with anything that is subject to a free market system, the firms are going to compete, the fees are going to compress, and it'll be less and less lucrative. And then you also have a regulatory environment where there's a lot more fiduciary responsibility on plan sponsors. There's a lot of lawyers out there who like to sue 401k providers and sponsors. So what I've seen much more recently, and this is kind of just maybe in the early stages, is the pendulum, like I said, swinging back to where a lot of these firms that really went all in on 401k and made a huge inroad there are coming back to wealth management. They see, okay, now you got your biggest balances in a 401k plan are the people who are close to retirement, or they're going to leave for another firm. And then you see those assets can just leave. And if you don't have a relationship with that person, with that participant, then it kind of erodes the value of the 401k practice, which is a difficult practice to run. There's a lot of compliance that has to be done. It's not just an easy thing to do. So what I'm seeing is a lot of focus on the 401k players building out wealth management teams. Even if they had them before, they're investing in them more to create that, let's say, a synergy with the 401k world. But the 401k is it's less and less profitable as the players just fight over fees to have those assets. Now they see it as a conversion opportunity to bring assets out into a wealth management arrangement that I think they're finding that more advantageous. So I see that as something. So us as an independent RIA, we don't hold anyone's money. We don't make any investments. That's getting to be sort of bigger competition now. A lot of firms are investing heavily in scale and people and things that we just don't have the ability to do in that way. So we really are relying on our deeper relationships with the people we do have. And that's a differentiator that we have to always lean on.
Excellent points. With everything you do, from music to finance to family life, how do you balance all these passions and maintain a sense of fulfillment, both personally and professionally?
Well, it could be tough. I try to stay in shape. I try to sort of keep the body healthy, the mind healthy. I will say the thing that I do that I probably value the most is I'm an early riser just naturally. So I get up, I've got my special little coffee routine that I do. And then I usually get half an hour, maybe to an hour before everybody else wakes up, where I'm just sit in peace and quiet with my lamp on and my coffee and just, I don't know, I can read something topical. I can just kind of look at random YouTube videos or something. It's my time and everything's quiet. And it kind of lets me just be kind of quiet and focused before the whole sort of hubbub of the day starts. So to me, that is, I'll call it my self-care. It's like meditation or prayer, two things that I don't really do at all. But it certainly that helps keep me centered. And then everything else, we're just going. I mean, I'm there for my kids. I'm at their games and their activities. My wife and I do find time to go have dinner. We love to go have dinners out with friends. We like to host people in our house. We like to sort of have the sort of social aspect in our lives too. That keeps me always feeling like I'm still engaged with my life and not just married to my desk.
Excellent. Final question. At Harbor, we're firm believers in active management, though it's important to acknowledge that every financial expert has their own unique perspective. From your experience, what is your take on active management, and where have you seen it making the most significant difference?
Yeah, I mean, ever since I learned how this business works, right? When I sort of entered the career and just started studying for the exams and everything about 11 years ago, it always seemed like there's not really one, you can never say like indexing is all good or bad, or active management is all good or bad. There's a blend to be had. And I'm very upfront with clients. So we engage in both types of investing, and we don't know which one's going to do better until after the fact. So we do both. I like to tell clients that active managers are trying to beat the market, and sometimes they even do. And I don't mean that as a slight to active management, but I think I want to poke through if there are people who harbor sort of no pun intended, who have a preconceived idea that there's not good value for money in having actively managed investments. I absolutely think there is, but you have to be careful and, about who you're using. It changes where active management can be beneficial. These are things that can evolve over time as the world changes, as the economy changes, as the markets change. At present, I really believe in active management in international equity and in fixed income. And you could even say small cap domestic equity are places where I think it is possible for an experienced active manager to generate some alpha by taking advantage of market inefficiencies. I think in the US large cap, sort of the dominant investment space today, I don't see it as much of a play there. I'm not saying it couldn't be. And of course, the day will come and we won't know. I won't know till after the fact that active management has been outperforming indexing. I know that day will come. But those are kind of where I feel today that it is possible to kind of make a read of where the markets and sort of economics of everything stand and be able to drive good investment outcomes.
Closing, last but not least, how can people find you?
Well, I think the Google machine helps a lot. I'm on LinkedIn, World Investment Advisors. We're a national RIA, and I'll be definitely in there on their website. But yeah, try me on LinkedIn. I'm definitely on there. And anybody wants to reach out, I'm always open here.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And now we're going to move on to what I like to call the lightning round, but it's officially known as 60 Seconds with Ben Westney. Let me know when you're ready.
Go ahead.
Nickname.
Benjamin.
Hidden talent.
I can repair any appliance in my house, in your house, in any house.
Cello solo or orchestra performance?
Solo.
What's the best professional advice you've ever received?
You're making it too complicated.
Most memorable Broadway show you've performed in?
West Side Story.
What's your go-to relaxation activity after a busy week?
I love walking. I think walking is great. Also play pickleball once a week too with some other dads in my neighborhood.
Most famous person you've ever performed with or for?
I would say Stevie Wonder, probably. For the more popular thing, I would say in the classical world, Yo-Yo Ma.
What's the most memorable place you've ever played the cello?
The Conan O'Brien Show.
What piece of advice would you give your younger self?
Don't buy a cell phone.
What's one question you think all clients should ask their advisor?
How are you getting paid?
Most rewarding part of your job?
It's when the clients tell me how much of a relief it is that we're working together.
Favorite way to get active?
Pickleball.